right, Junk Junkies, it's Newt. I'm here with James Carl Meadows, author of Coffee Secrets Cincinnati. And we're going to do his interview for his book. Remember to go ahead and review his book. The best thing you can do for an indie author, I have the book backwards. There, I fixed it. Best thing you can do for an indie author, leave a review. Fan fiction's always nice too. Who wouldn't want to read fan fiction? And let's get started here. Okay. Okay, now I
Absolutely.
have to look at my notes. I get so nervous. Okay, so before we jump into all of these questions, James, give us a recap of the book if you can, please.
Hey guys, yes, spoilers. Coffee Secret Cincinnati is a fantasy horror book, specifically urban fantasy, uh, set in a fictitious coffee shop and bookstore in downtown Cincinnati, near UC's campus. And the main protagonist for that book is Jody Howard. Now, Jody is a young man who has, we see in the opening of the book, he goes through a traumatic accident and is rescued by a mysterious stranger. Then we cut to the future where he's actually attending college, going to this, getting ready to go into work. He has an experience with this voice in his head, this urge that he's been fighting for years. He gets into the coffee shop, and as he's going through his days there, we see him experiencing things that feel more and more off. The environment doesn't feel right. It feels oppressive. I mean, other people around him have noticed this as he talks to them, but he's just now kind of opening his eyes to seeing that something's not quite right at his workplace, which is called the study hall there. And uh, the next big event that happens is Jody discovers his employer dead in the back room. This employer is a elderly gentleman. He loves Jody. He's very rough around the edges. He tries to be as fatherly to Jody as possible, and Jody appreciates that since he doesn't have a true father figure. He's been mostly abandoned by his uh, surviving mother and his stepfather. And but he discovers the body of his employer beside this creepy record player that that he always used to play the specific creepy record. And he breaks down. He has a PTSD episode, and you see him being rescued by his friend slash wannabe love interest Meg. Uh, he falls into a depression. Meg tries to pull him out of this, tries to coax him to re-enter the real world. He's helped along by a buddy of his named Billy. Billy also tries to nurse him into the real world, pull him out of his shell, but he just keeps falling deeper and deeper. As he's dealing with this depression, a new person becomes more and more prominent in his life. It's a young lady by the name of Karen. Now, Karen has special abilities. She is uh, psychic. She can sense supernatural entities, and she's been focused in on the study hall for a long time. In fact, she, unbeknownst to Jody, is a friend of Billy's. They work together in this parapsychological association where they go do these kind of ghost hunts inside homes and businesses and figure out what's going on and try to help bring peace to the place. So Jody uses them to perform seances, to perform ghost investigations, and every step of the way, the supernatural activity becomes more aggressive and escalates. Also, every step of the way, he's getting closer and closer to Karen. They develop a relationship. She ends up carrying his child. And finally, one evening, as she's about to tell him that she's pregnant, she gets violently attacked by this ghost, this old hag in the bookstore. Jody's had enough. He uh, calls the group together for what he hopes is a final showdown with this spirit. It does not disappoint. The spirit of a young boy and of the hag show up. and they torment the whole group, but specifically Karen. They actually literally scare her to death. They frighten her so much. She's wigged out so much like this. She goes running out of the building, gets run over by a car. And that just sends Jody even farther down his spiral. So now we've got Jody back into uh, deep into his alcoholism, deep into his depression, his suicidal nature. Meg and Billy are now staying with him in his apartment, spending time as much time with him as possible, making sure he eats and bathes while he can't even handle just the basics of life on his own. And as he starts tiptoeing back into normality, he gets deeper with a trusted patron of the business by the name of Donald, who is a middle-aged guy that's a hard worker, but he's apparently very well off. He has no problem buying very expensive collectors' books, and he was a client of the store from even before Jody started working there. The previous owner knew him well. Turns out they were actually stepbrothers, and Mr. Tipton, the owner of the store, hated Donald, didn't want to have much to do with him because of a traumatic event in their past. Uh, Donald and Mr. Tipton had a younger brother that was actually murdered by their mother, and she made them cover it up. Uh, then they were haunted by the ghost of the young boy, and finally, the young boy convinces Mr. Tipton to murder their mother. Donald helps him cover that up, but they get split up their separate ways and never really reconciled. Mr. Tipton always blamed Donald for that event, for that entire situation, and they never really came to a reconciliation while he was alive. Turns out Donald wants to help Jody through this situation. He wants to help him find peace, but he wants him to stay away from the ghost. He doesn't like the fact that he's dealing with the Parapsychological Association, that he's holding seances, that he's trying to deal with it. Um, Turns out that it's not just a ghost, it's a ghost and a demon. It turns out that it's not just Donald, the man, the patron, it's Donald, the angelic Sharon, responsible for ushering humans from their death to the afterlife. And Donald helps Jody come to the realization that all these tragedies that are going on, they're not his fault. He can find some kind of internal forgiveness for that, and he can let that go. He can find a will to live, and that's actually what Donald does. He defeats the demon. He helps bring peace to the spirit of the little boy, his brother, and he gives Jody the final choice of, do you want to live or do you want to go ahead and die? And Jody chooses to live. And we know that he lives a long life because at the very end of the story, he's at the steps of an old country church, surrounded by generations of family, with his wife, who is Meg, and they are going down the steps together in their old age. And he sees off into the distance uh, the familiar figure of an unchanged Donald, still bald headed, bearded, looking just like he did the last time he saw him. He waves really big to him, and then Donald disappears. The book ends with him at peace with the fact that he knows that Donald will be back very soon to take him on to his next phase of existence. So that is the story in a nutshell of Coffee Secrets Cincinnati.
I love it. And now we're going to dissect it, especially the Meg part. He did not make her sound as well. She is not the hero or the good guy. We'll get into that. I have many opinions. But let's start off here. All right. First of all, a big concept in this book is also, I think this is going to be hilarious because our talking speeds are opposite, completely opposite. I think that's going to make this so fun. Okay. So PTSD, huge aspect in the book, one of the first aspects that are really brought in and just continues to kind of grow and grow, and more is unveiled about the PTSD and that accident where he lost his father. But something that I found really interesting about this is, PTSD diagnoses are very, very common nowadays. But for Jody's case, he rejects the diagnosis. He doesn't want to admit that he has it. He doesn't want it to be a label for him, and that's not really common what's seen today, even though this book takes place in real time. So tell me a little bit about the decision to have him kind of cast off the acceptance of his PTSD.
Yeah, Jody comes from a background where uh, emotional, psychological issues are not accepted. So it would not be acceptable for you to have any kind of mental illness attached to your name or reputation in the culture where Jody comes from. Now, luckily for him, he's moved into a more urban area where that is much more accepted, and with younger people that are much more accepting of it. They don't see it as a tarnish on Jody's character. They just see it as a an aspect of an illness that they need to help him through. But Jody never really, until the end of the book, comes to terms with the fact that he even has PTSD. He fights Meg and his other friends, try to get him to keep going back to counseling. He fights even that. He doesn't like having to even name the problem that he has it. He wants to pretend that it's not there because that is safe. That means he's healthy if nobody can talk to him about it. So that's his issue.
All right, and if you see me looking away from the screen, it's because all my notes are on my phone.
That's fine.
So something that I thought was really interesting is, this all takes place modern day, but he has this kind of old school mentality where instead of feeling, we shut down. But the internal monologue is there that kind of comes out bits and pieces, just like how that accident, every little time he has a PTSD issue, we get more details and more details and more details. But how is it balancing out your character, Jody, to how he looks to the outside world in the book versus his internal monologue, and how to balance out how other people in the book perceive him?
Mm. Um, at the at the beginning of the book, Jody feels the struggle. He's aware that he's got this internal dialogue with himself, and he's aware that he's dealing with this otherworldly voice that gets in his head and tells him to do things. But he feels like he's under control with that. He feels like he's got his hands around it, and it's a monster that he can keep down and away from the world. His friends, the people around him, realize that he's still struggling with this, that he's been getting better, but he's not recovered yet. He's still dealing with it. He's dealing with it less and less, but it's still something that won't go away. And it impacts him anytime he has a stressful situation. So like there's a scene in the book where um he falls asleep for a second at the wheel and wakes up with a car blaring its horn coming at him, and he has to recover, and that causes him to completely shut down. He just shakes and goes into a fit, and his mind just goes blank. He literally just shuts down. He falls asleep. The next thing he knows, after he stops the car, is the police officer knocking on the window. So it's that level of dysfunction that while Jody thinks he's hiding from the world, The rest of his friends clearly see that. And they clearly see that there's a path for him to grow and make life more manageable for himself. But he doesn't want to admit it because that would admit his weakness because of his background, where he comes from.
Now, none of my fan theories have been correct, but I think this one is more spot on than any of the others. So, yes, Jody has the inner monologue described as a snake. He has all this paranormal stuff that's going to happen to him later down the line. I mean, a lot of it. And so here's my thinking here. While he's trapped in that overturned car with his dad, who's like dead and disfigured, here's what I think is happening. Okay. I think that the entire book takes place in his subconscious. The hissing of the snake is like the gas and the turbines and stuff making noise in the car. You know, when you like overheat the car and it goes, I think that's what the snake is. And all of this is happening in his head as a way to like adapt to the fact that he is pinned in a car with his dead father, who, clearly doesn't look like his eyes are closed and he's asleep. Like he is disfigured and all of this is happening in his head. And this is all happening in like a capsule of time and maybe like 10 minutes while the officer's there. And the only thing that kind of breaks him out of it is because over and over again in the book, it's mentioned that the cop is like, look at me, just look at me. And I think that's what's kind of breaking up the reality. But I think all of this is happening in his subconscious. And Jody is an unreliable narrator. Also, he probably had a pretty bad head injury. So, how close am I on this?
Well, I mean, I believe that once I create the story, it goes out into the world, and my readers get to interpret it how they want. I think how they want to. That is an amazing interpretation, and I would love to take credit for that and say that I was clever enough to put all those aspects in there. But my intention was not that. The snake is my way of personifying the demonic influence versus the mental illness. So Jody has these internal thoughts. If it's just Jody, it just sounds like Jody talking, right? But if it's the demon speaking to his mind, that's where the snake comes in. It physically sounds like a snake hissing in him. Like I envision, like Parcel Tongue in that other amazing series that we know so well for magic systems. That kind of a voice in his internal center of his thoughts.
There's a lot of like background noise. So there's the snake that's the background noise. And then there's this one record. Like, and I think of it kind of like if you ever watched American Horror Story Asylum, that one record that plays all the time. There's this one record. Jody takes over the coffee shop after the owner dies, Mr. Tipton. And Mr. Tipton always played this one record. And I don't remember what the song is, but I know you know what song it is. What song is it that it continuously plays?
It's a whole opus. It's a whole piece called the Stabat Mater, composed by Dvorak. That's the specific one that he listens to. It's a big long performance and several movements. It is absolutely beautiful and haunting. And yeah, it does trigger a lot of the activity uh, because the origins of that was that is they would listen to that in the house while uh, Mr. Tipton and his brothers would play, right? So the only time that the ghost of the little brother would show up and play and interact with Mr. Tipton was then when he would replay that record. And so that's why it became such a prominent feature in his everyday, day-to-day life and rituals, was because that was his connection to the spirit of his little brother. But it's the inspiration for the entire book. So when I got to sit down and watch a performance of that being done at the Cincinnati Mayfest choir, and I mean, I would recommend if you're an ebook reader or if you're a physical book reader, pull down Dvorak's Stabat Mater and listen to it. It doesn't have to be loud, but just listen to it in the background while you read the book. I think you'll find it's a pleasant mix, and you'll feel even more of those vibes.
If I was a good video editor, it would be playing right now in the background. That's not the case. And so that's
Well,
just
I
not
have
going to
faith in
happen.
you. I have faith in you. That's why you're going to hear it
You
here.
have way more faith than you should. Way more faith than you should. But who knows? Because I have a backlog of 5 interviews. Maybe by then, if you're hearing music right now, praise me in the comments because I've done it.
Cool, cool.
Okay, so he takes over the shop. He has one cool friend, Billy. You don't want me cursing in this, probably, right?
Hey, it's your show. Do what
I mean, if it's your interview, you're the one who's going to be showing people, this is my feral friend who just talks a lot. Okay, I'll try not to curse. Uh, He has one cool friend, Billy. They've been friends for a long time. And then there's Meg. I've never had more people outside of book club like reach out to me just to discuss this one character. So Jody takes over the shop, Billy, who's a drunk, in my opinion, and Meg. And she is the worst in the best way. Because depending on how, my opinion, depending on how old you are when you read Meg, you get different levels of hate. Like if I read this when I was in middle school, I've been like, oh, she's annoying but fine. High school, I would have been like, she's kind of a bitch. But like as a 34-year-old, viscerally hate her. And I'm gonna go into extreme detail as to why. So she's like the hot girl, whatever. Um, but apparently Jody asked her out a lot, which is fine. Okay. If someone says no, probably don't ask them again, but they're 22 years old. And one of the biggest things in this book that I'm like, oh my God, finally, yes, I love this, is that you wrote them with the mental maturity of their actual age, which shouldn't be a rare thing to read, but you did it. And no one does that. And it makes it so much more like charmingly frustrating because me with my, 34-year-old brain is seeing a 22-year-old thinking like a 22-year-old, and I'm just like, Jesus. Anyway, so let's talk about Meg for a minute, just because I have to get this out or my head is going to explode. And then I'll let you talk more. I'm monopolizing. Okay, so Jody's taking over the shop. He doesn't even ask Meg out. He just turns to her and says something, and she's like, "Can you just go one night without asking me out?" And he's like, "Bet." And he goes, he meets Karen. They like go out on a date. They have a little time, or in the book, it literally says "bow chicka wow wow," which I thought was adorable. Um, and Meg and Billy call him like 10 times in the night, and he doesn't answer. And the next day, Meg loses her little sociopathic mind. She's like, "You ignored our calls. Yeah, I didn't cater to your needs for one night after you essentially called me a predator. I guess I'm the devil, except he's like way nicer. I'm like very upset about this character, so I'm more passionate. She's like, "You've changed, Jody Howard. You've changed." Like, shut up. You literally just told him that you were sick of him being into you, and now you're like mad he isn't your bitch errand boy. And then, and then this girl was like, "I want you. You just told him you didn't. I want you, but I want the normal version of you." She later in the book too, she's like, "I need normal. Where's normal?" Dude, you know he has PTSD. You talk to him about it. In fact, you force him to say it out loud, something he's clearly not ready to do. Oh, but you're Meg and you're in charge and you know everything and you're the one who's going to save people. But in order to save them, they have to meet up to the standards that I want, which is normal. And then why then if that's the case though, why is she bitching when he closes the coffee shop? Sorry, spoiler ahead for later. She's like, "Open it back up." Oh, this girl. Anyway, and he's like, "Okay, but I'm with Karen now." And then she goes and gets drunk with a friend. Um, and she's like, "I love him." Pick a lane because it's been 48 hours. 48 hours. And you have gone from "you're a predator" to "I'm in love with you." I'll pause there.
I love that take. I love that someone is passionate about those characters. That's
It
so
wasn't
awesome.
just me. These conversations I've had with book club over Meg have been insane. Just tell me, what did you think her character was going to be read like? Like, just tell me about Meg. Like, did you expect it to have this much of a reaction from people?
I did not. I was so pleasantly surprised to hear that. I thought Meg was a fairly common kind of character out there, but now that I hear it, I'm like, yeah, that's spot on. But
She's the
no, she
worst.
she's self-absorbed, right? She's who she is. She's in her 20s. She's going through college. She's got places to go and people to see. And yeah, she's known Jody for these last 4 years, and I mean, she severely friend zoned Jody. I mean, Jody was that dude that was really nice, was always there, that she could always count on, and he was like her little pet project, right? She wanted to, get him up on his own 2 feet, as it were, and get him, whatever healed would mean from his situation, from his PTSD. She doesn't even know what that looks like, but she knows that she wants him to get there. I mean, she's not a fundamentally deep inside bad person, but she's just self-absorbed and uh, is very
Sociopathic.
bossy, very snarky, and in her own way won't take no for an answer. So, but she's free. She gives out no as a very free answer to everybody around her. So,
So this is not something I even prepped you for question wise. It's not in the book. But what do you think her major is? Because to me, I think she's like abnormal psych, or I'm gonna be a journalist, or oh, I'm gonna go into like nursing or social work, so that way people are like under me. Like what would you say Meg's major is?
Meg is a math major in my mind.
Why?
The only reason why is because in my mind somewhere she's always taking a calculus test. I don't know if I had that in a previous draft. I don't know if it survived to this draft, but in my mind she's taking a calculus test, and that's kind of the source of her attitude, right? Is she wants 2 plus 2 to make 4.
I mean, I'd be pissed off if I had to constantly take calculus tests too.
But that's her major. She's very concrete, and she's willing to tell people what the answer is and that she knows it. And she knows that because in her mind, 2 plus 2 always equals 4. And so
Good.
if you're not at 4, let's get you there. That's me.
I need to get a better place to shoot these that is not in my bed because my feet are going numb. But I live in such a small apartment, there's no other options.
I get that entirely.
And speaking of crappy women, his mother, I gotta like adjust this pillow. I have such a professional setup, it's great. I'm doing wonderful. His mother, and this Jody's was her mother and her father, his mother and father, were they married when Jody's dad died?
Yes.
Okay.
They
So
had a,
that happens.
they had a happy, for all intents and purposes, they had a happy marriage, raising their kids, never had a hard life. Dad got to take Jody out on lots of trips. Dad was really kind of the nurturing one, right? Dad really cared about Jody, really took him under his wing, was always taking him on dad and son trips and going to do these things. So Jody has all these intense, great memories about his dad. And then when his dad is taken from him, that leaves his mom, who was always self-absorbed, never really had to struggle in life, kind of lived a blessed existence, and so she's not equipped to really emotionally handle this herself, much less provide support to her son. And that just carries over throughout the rest of the story. So like when Jody calls her, or when they're on the phone together and he's talking with her about Mr. Tipton's passing and him finding the body, she asks, one or two related questions, but doesn't really dig deep in depth with him. She's more concerned, that she's telling him about her latest vacation with his stepdad, and how that they were visiting these pyramids, and how they're actually Mayan pyramids, not Aztec pyramids or whatever. So she's very shallow. Not that she's an evil person, but she's just a shallow person that again is I mean, she's even more self-absorbed than Meg. She can't see beyond her own needs. And now she's gone from the dead husband and found the other new guy that provides just fine for her. I mean, he treats her like a queen. He's always got her out on vacations. But they're never with her son. Her son comes home on breaks to an empty house. Her son's eating TV dinners. Their vacations don't mean family time to her. They mean time for me to have fun. So yeah, that's the unfortunate character that his mother is.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Did you base any of your characters on real people or any of your experiences? Also, I have a pug cleaning herself in the background and I can't get her to stop. So if you hear that, it's not me, it's the pug.
I don't hear anything. I'm fine.
Okay.
But I've I, there was a particular friend that was very terse and short in my early years that I kind of modeled at least the personality of Meg after. The Billy, I 100% every time I uh, wrote Billy, it wasn't someone in my life per se. It was the character from the movie Twister, the dude with the blonde hair that always wore the Hawaiian shirt. That was Billy.
You are the second author to bring up this movie, and I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, go see the not the second one because they changed his character a bit for the second one. Go see the original old Twister.
I think I'm gonna have to now. You're the second author that I've
Because
interviewed that's
his
mentioned this
voice, his
movie.
voice is 100%. That's Billy. That's his attitude. That's how he acts. Yeah, he's got the added elements of being an alcoholic, like you said, but that's Billy.
Yeah.
And I, Jody has uh, a little bit of me in my. I have a sense of, at least I think I have a sense of stoicism. I tend to not admit when things are wrong and just keep plowing through. Um, I also see a lot of myself in the character of Donald. Uh, just that sense of having a higher calling and being extremely self-critical and always never quite being able to do the task you're assigned the way you want to get it done. There's always a loose end. There's always something you've screwed up. There's always something you've done wrong. It's never, and whenever you screw up, it's never as bad as you feel like it is. Because in Donald's case, God never, kicks him out of heaven or whatever. He's still an angel. He's still doing his thing, but uh, he can never quite do it the way he feels like he should. So that's why he feels like he's not the best employee. That he's just there doing the best he can.
And speaking of Donald, so Donald initially is introduced as the heavy spender, the
Mhm.
weird guy who comes in, drops 20 grand and walks out. Obviously, you know, we'll get more into what his character becomes, but this is where I was like, huh, this is something a 22-year-old would actually do. Jody just took over. He's going out to lunch with his highest paying client and like sits down to eat with him. He's like, "Can I tell you something crazy?" Because obviously the little brother, Spectre, who only comes out when the record's being played, is now causing chaos and doing paranormal stuff all over the coffee shop. What was I understand it was plot development, but I remember reading that being like, you don't know how to do basic profession. Don't tell your high spender, hey, there's a ghost. Like, what?
Mhm. Mhm.
I love
That's
that though.
yeah, that is a symptom of Jody's place in life. He's in it. He works hard, but he's inexperienced. He's in his 20s, right? He's just doing the adult thing. He's not used to running his own business. He's certainly not used to whatever the heck is going on around him. And then you've got the kind of sage Donald who seems to have it all together. He dresses in nice suits. He's got a strong handshake. He's, like you said, able to throw down $20,000 in a big wad of cash whenever he wants a fancy book. And he seems to have it all together in life. And now the catalyst for that conversation, for that admission, was some subtle questioning from Donald. But yeah, you, as a business person, this is not the way to success, right? We don't admit, oh, well, there's ghosts in my shop and they talk to me all the time and I'm scared and I don't know what to do. So yeah, other than that, life's great. How about you? That's not that's not the way to woo your investors, but that's what he ends up doing because, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So Donald's abundance of the heart is all his problems because he can't admit that he has problems and share them with the world and get help. He has to internalize it all. Well, that bubbles up and it bubbles up through the mouth in inappropriate times. That's what happened to him.
And Donald makes the same mistake many times in the book. So, first initial mistake, he I'm just gonna skip to like what he is. So Donald, who it's from what I read, is a seraphim, angel, mouthpiece of God. I almost disagree with that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But he is a reaper. He says he's a mouthpiece of God. I feel like if you're a reaper, then you have to take people to the good and the bad place. So you can't be a mouthpiece of God because then that would sway your judgment. You're not there to judge, although he does take it upon himself to cause a lot of chaos by refusing to take people. Um, I think I'm jumping ahead of myself. I'll slow down. You wrote good characters that require a lot of thought. My thought process is often very messy. Okay.
Um,
Donald, adopted brother of Mr. Tipton, and their little brother who died, who comes out when the record's played. His little brother died, was beaten to death by the mother, and then Donald decided not to take him. He just couldn't do it, didn't have it in him. Well, that created the specter. Then Donald showed up when the car flipped. He took Jody's dad, but didn't take Jody. But he knew what happened when he didn't take his little brother, and this guy became a ghost. Why would he decide to repeat it? I mean, he's old enough, he's a reaper to know one and one makes two. I didn't take this boy, and now he's a ghost that plays when a record's around. Oh, and there's a demon attached to him. I'll do the same thing with Jody.
yeah. Well, there's some subtle differences there, but I think with when when we in our modern age look at it's really not it's really easy to take these big concepts like angelic beings, right, and try to put them as neatly as possible into boxes so that we can understand them. So we want to put labels on them. We want to say, okay, you're a seraphim, so you look like this, you act like this, and this is your job. Well, the job of an angel is really to be the messenger and servant of God. So basically, your job description is open. Your job is what God says it is. So if God says deliver a message, you're the mouthpiece of God because you're delivering that message. If God says deliver this soul from point A to point B, well, you deliver the soul from point A to point B. That's your job. And that's what he's assigned to do. Is just basically he serves at the pleasure of the Almighty God, doing whatever he's supposed to do. His main job is get souls from point A to point B. Now, it's not to get them to their reward or their punishment. It's to get them to their judgment. So he's not taking them to heaven. He's not taking them to hell. He's
Oh,
taking them to the throne of God, and God gets to decide. And that's
okay.
one of the things he didn't want. That's why he couldn't do his little brother. It's because he couldn't handle the possibility of what might happen there at the throne of God. Right? He's either going to go to the happy place or the not happy place, and he couldn't stand the thought of him going to hell. So he kept him on earth. That way, he and his brother could still have these interactions with him. So he wouldn't have to deal with that personal loss, but he also wouldn't have to deal with the possibility of his brother going to hell. And then fast forward it to the Jody situation, he doesn't. Again, I tried to make a very specific distinction between death and the Sharon role. So he's not death. He doesn't remove life from the body. He's there for when it gets removed from the body. So
Okay.
he's coming upon the accident and he's going and he's praying, he's communicating directly with God and saying, "No, please, not both of them." He knows he's here for somebody, right? He knows who's in there. He's like, "No, please, not both of them." And he gets to the Father's spirit, and Jody's father intercedes on behalf of Jody with Donald and says, "Please, don't take my son. He's please let him still live," to that effect. And so then Donald has that kind of conversational prayer with God of, "Please don't take this boy." And so while he may it may have been Jody's fate to go ahead and be and pass away there and then be removed, but Jody, unlike the brother, Jody doesn't actually pass away. Jody stays alive the whole time because God hears that prayer and he lets the hand of death pass over Jody and not take him. But Donald still sees that as a failure because you're right. It's still, as far as Donald's concerned, it's the same mistake, just rehashed. Donald says, "Great. I had too big of a heart. I didn't have the heart to do it with my brother. I didn't have the heart to do it with this little boy because I didn't have the heart to do it. Now he gets to live this horrible life that he's been living. He's dealing with alcoholism. He's dealing with depression. He's dealing with suicidal thoughts. He's dealing now with this demon that's hanging around because of the other screw up that I had." And so he's really guilt ridden over that. And he considers that a failure, even though it's not truly his failure.
Well, it does seem a little bit like Donald made a mess and Jody's cleaning it up. Why can't Jody, I mean, the mother who kills the little brother and
Mm-hmm.
then, she gets killed was, and we see the mother come back as almost like a poltergeist, but it's more of a demon. So did the mother get shepherded away by
Yeah.
Donald? Okay. He could do that,
Mother,
but is there like this is, I don't know if there's an answer to this, but is there like a time limit where he could have just gone and taken the little brother later on? And
in for lack of a better term, in my magic system in the book, there's no really time limit. So yes, I mean, at any point in time, he could go get the spirit of his little brother and usher him to the throne of God for judgment. He still refrains to do that because I mean he's still not sure that he's wanting to do that, and he's seeing the deterioration of the spirit of his little brother. It gets more and more twisted as time goes on, and
does
he
that
just
count for your judgment though, if it happens after?
um I don't answer that question. That's
That's
a
fair.
that's just like his job is to deliver the soul, let God judge. I mean, that's up to God. I don't propose an answer to that at all. I just propose that the right thing to do is to not keep him languishing here and become more dark and more twisted and more destructive under the influence of the demonic force that wants to destroy them. So, and ultimately, I see where you're coming from, where you feel like it's Jody's job to clean up this mess and to deal with the mother and the little boy. But if you remember back to the end of the story, where Donald takes Jody through his realization of not fault with Jody, letting him feel like he can forgive himself, leading him through his conversion experience, for lack of a better term. When they go in, Jody keeps asking for the plan. What's the plan? He's like, I just got clean of all this crap inside of me. I don't feel empowered. I don't know what to do. I've never seen this. How are we supposed to defeat a demon? And he keeps asking for the plan. And the plan is Donald tells him the plan is for Donald to deal with the boy first because he's tricky. And Jody doesn't die. The plan is for Jody not to die and for Donald to go deal with them one at a time. First the boy, then the demon.
And if the demon touches him, he dies.
And so Jody's whole job here isn't to clean up the mess. It's to just don't die in that entire experience. And now to do that, he does have to face the demon. He does have to face, but what he's really facing are the things that he had to clean himself out of in that conversion experience, in that self-forgiveness, in that finding spiritual peace kind of thing. Is he had to deal with his experience with the dark man and his guilt. So that's one thing we haven't touched on is the dark man from his past, the killer of his father.
Oh yeah, that's such a good bit you threw in there too. Like that like floored me.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
It,
has to deal. So he has to deal with his feelings of guilt over the death of his father's murderer. So his father's murderer killed himself, but because he killed himself with his gun that he intended to murder him with,
Jody shows up to confront him and
feels guilty over that. So that is a the big weight in his stomach that's pulling him down through this whole story is that guilt over the death of his father's murderer. Then he's got the guilt over his relationship with Meg, over the fact that he got her pregnant, that they had
Karen.
that, or Karen, sorry, he got her pregnant over that, with that very physical, passionate relationship, and then he wasn't able to save her. She died. He wasn't able to
Baby
save her.
died,
The baby died.
which
Then
was so like haunting. And like Jody almost had it all. Like he had the girl. I mean, it was a whirlwind romance, but he had the girl. He had a baby on his way. Do not shut this laptop, please. Just sit down. Just sit down. Okay. I'm just gonna ignore it.
yeah.
She likes to shut the laptop screen if I'm not playing with her. And then, she's scared to death. So they end up, what I liked about Karen is there's always a twist. There's always a twist. And I'm trying to look up, sorry, I have all my questions. None of them are in order because why would they be? What is the name of the paranormal investigator again? It was Professor Anderson?
No, it did start with an A. Why was it?
It did start with an A. It's in my notes, but I can't. Austin.
Austin. Yeah,
Okay.
Professor Austin.
So they hired Professor Austin to come and like take a look, which I thought was like cool that she was a school professor, but also did this, but also weird. Like, how do your students know that you do this? Anyway, turns out Karen was there. They get into, playing with the paranormal. Karen dies. That taste of almost being free from despair that Jody had.
Yeah.
Do you think Karen and the baby dying pushed him further over the edge, or do you think that moment of hope gave him any healing at all?
The way I wrote it, I think that that's actually pushed, I would say that pushed him quicker over the edge because as as healing as Jody would say it was, and I think that you picked up very strongly on that. Jody's feeling like he's arriving. He's got this girl, he's got this relationship, he's going to have a kid. He feels deeply, madly in love and passionate with this other person. To him, he's seeing that as healing. But that doesn't change the fact that she accelerated his downward spiral
But in the
because
book, Donald was like, I can take you now. You have so much pain ahead of you. And
yeah,
he's like, no. And he goes on and, has a beautiful life, kids, grandkids.
yeah.
So was that second of hope the difference between him saying, I'm going to go now versus, no, I'm going to check out and see what life has to offer?
I I can see that how that second of hope definitely played a part in that decision. I mean, he saw that even though life can throw some really horrible, nasty things your way, he did have, no matter what else it brought, no matter what other baggage, even though it put him deeper into, even though it reopened his alcoholism and started him, you know, uh, with that again, that he did have a place where he felt actual love. He did have a place where he knew that he was going to be a father and felt that kind of fulfillment. So yeah, I think that that did give him a spark that allowed him to say, "Yes, I know something horrible is probably down the road for me, but I don't want to miss the good for the horrible." So kind of like, it's a way of him looking back and forward at the same time. I've gone through some horrible things. My girlfriend died, my kid died, everything I loved died, but at least I had that love. And I know I can feel that again. I know I can have that again. So yes, I think you're absolutely right on that.
One of the things that I really, really liked about this, especially just because this book kind of exemplifies the internal journey of PTSD,
Mhm.
instead of just like an outward sort of superficial glance, is the way you would give sparing details throughout the book. So, let's just talk about Jody confronting the drunk driver who caused the accident. We know there's an accident. Time goes on, we find out it's a drunk driver. Time goes on, we know something happens with a gun. As the reader, we assume it was a suicide. Later on, we find out Jody's holding a gun to the drunk driver's head, and then the drunk driver takes it and takes his own life. It kind of mirrors the self-acceptance of trauma. Was that something you did very intentionally, or was that something that just flowed like naturally and kind of put itself together the right way?
I think it was a function of Jody's realization, and I thought that since you're right, that is the self actualization and realization of trauma and dealing with it internally. It was a way that I could have the reader experience that alongside of Jody. So that you're absolutely right. Just as Jody is slowly putting these dreams, these nightmares together, these memories together, um, the reader gets to experience it too. And they don't get it all at once because they just get a little bit here and that's all you can handle. A little bit there, that's all you can handle. A little bit the next step, that's all you can handle until finally you have the whole picture. And then once you have that whole picture, you have to deal with it, right? So that's I did intentionally do that through my research on how people deal with those kind of real PTSD traumatic kind of situations, and and letting use it's just kind of a happy circumstance of the format, I think, though, that the fact that I had Jody experience it that way also allowed the reader to experience it that way at the same time.
Was it hard to kind of do that research and write out these characters, write out the trauma, and instead of kind of trauma dumping, to kind of walk through the grieving stage, walk through the acceptance stage, walk through those memory? Was that difficult to do on an emotional scale for you?
Um, yeah, I think it was. I mean, there's everybody has their own trauma in their life, their own horrible things that happen to them, and um, as you know, as a dude, I want to constantly fix things, so I want to get to the right answer. Let's just get to the solution. Just get to the solution. So as a writer, it's very tempting for me to just go, and here's all the bad things that happened, and this is how we dealt with them. But that doesn't give good service to who the character is and how they experience that healing for themselves. And and by doing that, I'm forced through the mirror of art to examine, okay, I I can academically understand things, right? But I don't necessarily emotionally understand them until I experience them. So it did force me to look at some things from my past and deal with them in that same manner. Like you can't just keep shoving that under the rug. It's a real thing.
I know
And
you said you took 21 years to write the book from initial concept to holding it in your hand.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, obviously, 21 years, you change, your mentality changes, you mature, you get more emotional depth. Was it, difficult going back and as you kind of grew and mature, going back and reading the 22-year-old mindset, writing the 22-year-old emotional mindset and that level of maturity as you got older and continued to revise?
Um, the revision of the 22-year-old mindset, I very intentionally didn't paint over it. I think I think if I would have sat down today to write this book from scratch, it would have been much harder for me to paint that as an accurate picture. But back then I was just in it, right? So it back then when I started writing the first rough draft of the book, it was much harder for me to write the experienced character. It was harder for me to write the Donald and try to get him right. So actually, when I went back and got really hands into true revisions, I tried to let the young people just continue to be young people, and then tweak Donald in the ways that I thought would make him more deep and meaningful to people that are further along in their walk.
Is there anything we haven't touched on yet?
Uh, I don't know. I don't think so.
I jump around too much, but it's just because I get so excited to talk about it. And no one's complained. I just feel like I'm always missing something. I'm looking through notes. Have we touched on everything?
Yeah, one thing that I I wrote into the book, but so far I haven't heard anybody talk about. So I'll just touch on it myself. Is that I try to write a little more continued humanity through Jody's experience. So in that very last scene, super short denouement with just them at the steps, whenever he sees Donald in the distance and they wave, and Meg asks him, what did you see, dear? Something to that effect. And he just said, oh, just an old friend. We'll meet again soon, I'm sure, right? He doesn't tell her it was Donald. He doesn't share that with her. And in my mind, it's not so much that he's trying to shield her from the fact that he's about to pass away. In my mind, I don't think he's ever really addressed that whole thing with her. I don't think he's ever really opened up the fact that Donald is an angelic Sharon that helped him through his problems. I, I don't think that he's ever unpacked that with her. That he's just kind of kept that as his secret. Again, he doesn't. He's holding on to things again. He's holding on to them in healthier ways.
Well, I
But
mean,
he's
she did demand normal.
yeah, she did demand the normal. That's right. So he was giving her the normal.
So what's coming up next for you? You got
Uh,
some things in the works here?
yes, next I've got a my second book is going to be Troublesome Blood. It's a his I wouldn't say historical fantasy. It's just a high fantasy novel. It's a story of a young man who wants to live long enough to avenge the death of his family. A young woman who is wanted dead by the Queen of the Fae, and how they try to save each other and manage to destroy each other in the process. And set in a approximation of a historical Scotland. Uh, it's going to be about 3 times the size of Coffee Secret Cincinnati. I'm excited about it. I loved writing it. It was a great exploration. It is a standalone. There are some connections between it and Coffee Secret Cincinnati, but I'll leave that up to the readers to discover whenever they read it. But it's a great book. It deals a lot more with magic, especially with a lot of fae, a lot of Scottish lore in it. So I can't wait to share that with the world. I hope it comes out. I'm hoping for it to come out in February. Might be as late as April, but I'm hoping it comes out in February.
With my editing skills, it may already be out by now. So it might be out, guys. And if it is, go get it.
Yeah,
Does it have a title yet?
it's
Did you
called
already?
Troublesome Blood.
Troublesome Blood by James Carl Meadows. It could be out. It could be out right. It could have been out
That's
for like 6 months. We don't know. I don't know. Definitely don't know. So just go on Amazon and look.
Take a look, see if you can find it.
Yeah, see if you can't find it, then I've really picked up my editing game. So, but you'll probably find it. You'll probably find it.
I believe in you. You can do this. You got this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And then if someone wanted to get in touch with you, do you have a newsletter? Do you got an Instagram?
Yeah, uh, I am on TikTok and Instagram under James Carl Meadows. I think TikTok I might be under JC Meadows.
You're under
Uh,
JC Meadows. I think you changed it though, actually. You were under JC. It doesn't matter. But yeah.
um, TikTok you can find me under James Carl Meadows, and I have a website. It's jcmeadowsbooks.com. I've got the book and some merchandise up for sale, and you can keep up with some occasional updates on the upcoming books that I'm working on. And I've got some new announcements that I'm getting ready to release on some of the artists that I'm working with for the second book. That's some exciting stuff. I really love their work. Can't wait to showcase that. And uh, you can message me and actually join the newsletter or no, the mailing list on there for updates. You can also email me directly, jamescarlmeadows@gmail.com. If you got questions, I'm happy to talk.
And I will have all that information in the description. And then, of course, you can always leave questions, comments on this video as well, or on his TikTok would probably be the best place. But yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. This is awesome. I loved reading this. I've never gotten more emotionally attached to violence for a single character than I have with this book.
I love it. I love it. Keep it up. Keep up the hate for Meg, I guess.
Oh, the
That's
hate for Meg is so real. It's so real. I think when I was reading, I messaged you while I was initially reading it, and I think Meg was introduced, and I think I told you I thought they were like Korean water demon. I don't remember what they're called, but I think I messaged you that, and I'm like, I think she's a demon. She has to be the
you referred
devil.
that she might be a demon. You didn't mention the Korean water demon. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't remember what they're called. Something with an M. But
I don't
yeah,
know. I've barely heard of them, but I don't know.
I only know about them from an SNL skit. So,
Okay. Well, this has been a great experience for me. It's been very uplifting, and I've loved to see you and meet the other people in the book club, and your questions are hard hitting and thought provoking and entertaining, and
Oh,
I have
thank you.
enjoyed every second of it. I mean, seriously, the other book clubs that I've sat in on, you did an excellent job with questions, and I'm even more impressed today. So keep it
Thanks.
up.
I'm not going to edit that out because,
Good, good.
thanks. All right, guys. So everybody go follow James Carl Meadows. Thank you so much again for doing this. And I'll see you guys later. Okay, don't log off. I'm just going